Welcome to the second day of the symposium here at Princess Kalyaniwatana Institute of Music. I'm Hein Kim. I'm one of the lecturers here at PGVIM, and I will be your host this morning. Thank you so much for joining us. This morning we have paper presentations, and we'll be starting with one of our plenary speakers, Dr. Alex Day. Dr. Day is based in Indonesia, and he specializes in Javanese gamelan music. He has studied composition with the likes of Lamont Young, Terry Riley, and Robert Ashley. Dr. Day is one of our regular presenters at our symposium, and we're very pleased that he can join us again this year. You will have noticed that we're doing a hybrid format for this year's symposium. So Dr. Day is joining us online remotely, but our other speakers will be here with us in person. All right, so I think we will begin now. Welcome, Dr. Day, and we're ready for your presentation.
Good morning. I'm very happy to be participating in this very important symposium. And I must say, I'm very sorry that I cannot be in Bangkok with you because I love your place and I have a lot of friends. But because of the COVID, my doctor told me not to travel at this point. So I'm very sorry about that. Hopefully next time we can meet face to face.
Yes, hope
so let me start. I'm going to share my PowerPoint. Is that okay?
Yes, please.
Okay, where? Okay, can you see my PowerPoint now?
Yes.
Okay, so here we go. I'm going to show some videos, and I had hoped to have the videos moving, but I'm going to have to stop them because of technical reasons, during the talking. Okay, so let me start. I'm talking diversity, divergence, and directions. And let's see if I can get next screen. Okay, there we go. So today I will talk about diversity. In recent years, cross-cultural or intercultural collaborations have become increasingly common and are important functions between artists of different cultures. So we know that now in Southeast Asia, diversity is a very rich variety of culture, cultures in Southeast Asia, with a vastness of elements of sounds, movements, and text. So when I mean divergence, it means when we have some collaboration or we want to make some new compositions or performances with different cultures, there will be some overlap. But also, there will be mismatches of ethos, of techniques, and approaches. So in collaborations, many exciting things can happen, but there are areas that need more attention to reach a higher or better or deeper level of art making. And finally, I'm going to talk about directions, where are some examples of perhaps what can be done to maximize the artistic endeavor, whether it's a collaboration or if it's just a creation like a new work, a new composition, or a new dance or something like that. Okay, I would describe 3 of my compositions which use traditional and non-tradition, maybe you can call modern features and elements. So it's mixing of traditional and non-traditional. And I will show you 3 of my compositions. The first is called Life Elegante, which you see it's a improvisation for 4 singing dancers. Then the second one is called In Pelog, and it is a Javanese gamelan composition, but I'm using what we call process-oriented composition, which is something to do with the minimalism of people like Terry Riley, Philip Glass, Steve Reich, and people like that, okay? The third one will be my Siddhartha, a major dance theater production involving artists from Japan, Java, Bali, India, and Malaysia. And we have different kinds of dance and music all put together. In all of these three examples, the compositions are traditionally trained dancers or musicians. And they are now working with a non-tradition, or we can talk as modern or contemporary or experimental works. Okay, the first example I'm going to show you is the Life Elegant video. And I'm sorry I cannot show you all of it because of technical problems. So I have to stop it at some point to talk. So this is the Life Elegante, a 4. Okay, so I have to stop the video and just go through this bit so you know what we're doing. So the music was a vocal improvisation of the Javanese mixed with Indian elements. The Javanese part is a poem, what they call a sung poem, by the name of Dandangula, which is mystical, and it is sung for rituals, like if there's a new baby born and things like that. Now the Indian part, I use what we call the just intonation drone or sustained tones, which start with the Indian instrument called the tambura. I will show you a picture in the next slide. And also I mixed in some electronic sustained tones as well on top of it. So those are the two examples, the Java and the India. And I mentioned the sustained tones, that is to give intensity. And also it helps with the movement. Now the movements are freely improvised based on Java and Chinese. The Java is a classical dance. So my 3 dancers other than myself are very professional classical dancers. And then I'm the one with the Chinese Tai Chi, okay? Now here, I just want to say that the site of the performance, we were in the Chameti Art Gallery, and it's a big space, and each room or section had its own sound or sound color, and the audience could walk around, and each spot had a different harmony. So if I move to a different room, the background music will change, but our singing will be the same. Okay. So what's happened here is the 4 players are able to quickly adapt to each other because they're all professionals. It was the first time many classical or traditional performers were actually in a modern art gallery. So what it is my composition was actually an installation. And in this part of the installation, there are 4 people who can sing and dance. So again, I just want to say that the focus was on the sustained tuning and the harmonics, which is not part of Javanese music. So what I did was by mixing this, I introduced something to Java that they do not have, okay? So I mentioned already that the focus on the movement and the music is up to the player. So just a little bit more, if I can get this to go again. Okay, so there is the first piece. The next piece I'm going to show. Oh, sorry, before I go there, I just want to show you what the Javanese song looks like. And so you can hear is the melody, and here's the Javanese language, and here is the English. So just quickly, in English, it says, there is a poem for protecting the night, firm and beautiful, warding off illness, warding all misfortune. Evil spirits and devils don't want to come. Black magic spells are not bold. Along with bad spells, the black magic of bad people will not come. The fire is put out by water, and thieves are covetous, they're jealous, but none are effective toward us. So this is when we perform in this thing, most people know the meaning of this melody. So we use this melody like da 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 da. So those are repeated and improvised to make it sound more like an Indian song. Okay, so this is just an example of what is an Indian tambura. Some of you already know what this is, but it is 4 strings playing basically the same note. So it gives what we call the sustained tones. Okay, so that's the first piece. The sixth one I want to show, second one I want to show you is called in Pelog. You can see the instruments. Those are traditional Javanese gamelan. And this group was played over 11 years, and it could be 8 up to 20 musicians. And so quickly, I would tell you what we're doing, and then I would give you an example of the sound, okay? So we use a scale called Pelog. So that's one of the elements. Elements mean when I'm a composer, I try to choose 1 or 2 elements to concentrate on. And in Pelog is in honor of Terry Ryler's very famous minimalist composition called In C. And the Western element here is experimental. So I take the Javanese melody and I deconstruct, and I will show you the score, how I take it apart or deconstruct it. And then the Western side, I also use the minimalism aspect of repetition of these melody phrases. After that, we start this piece with the traditional composition, and then we freely improvise the melodies between the players. So the musicians are improvising a little bit like jazz, okay? So in this composition, the focus is on melody, interaction, rhythm, and the overall sound. Okay, so let me see if I can play this music here. It starts all together. Then little by little, each player will break away and improvise. Over time, the music becomes more busy and more free. sorry, I have to stop. I just want to cover these points here that you can see we started very slowly, and then the improvisation gathered up more and more. So it was a way to have the Javanese classical musicians quickly engage in a non-traditional environment. So this was done in around 2000 until 2010. Every year we did this piece, and every time we did it, because of improvisation, it was a different performance. So this has to do with in the 1990s in Indonesia, when experimental music was very new and it was unknown, it was very unfamiliar. So I wanted to find a way to take the traditional music and do something that would stretch the horizon of my classical musicians. All of the musicians here are Javanese with the exception of me, and you saw the American. So the only people who are not Javanese are me and my friend next to me. So the purpose or the benefit of this is in Pelog, as a composition, shows one direction, how to reconcile or to work together the Javanese traditional and the Western experimental, or what you might call contemporary or avant-garde. Okay, so that's in Pelog. So here we have to see if we can get this to come out. Okay. Yeah, I wanted to show you the classical Javanese composition, which was the basis of all of this, okay? So it is called onang onang, and this is very typical of the notation for a classical Javanese full gamelan orchestra. So the melody is de do de da do do da de do de di 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 di. So as it slows down, the improvisation instruments fill in more and more. So what you see on this page, composition, can play for around 20 minutes, okay? Now, I took that, this is the same melody, but you see in the white, I deconstructed or I extracted some phrases that we liked. So this is ding, ding, dong, ding, ding, dong, ding. So that's where the repetition comes in. And so as we go through the composition, we move to the second, and then the third, the fourth. And so everybody has their own timing. So it becomes more and more improvisation. Okay. And now for my third piece, I want to show you Siddhartha, which was full of more than 1 hour dance theater based on Hermann Hesse's very famous novel called Siddhartha. That was a 1925 German novel. It's philosophy about what they thought Asian philosophy and universal spirituality was all about. Buddha is part of it, but the story is not Buddha. It is another person by the name of Siddhartha. Siddhartha is a young Brahmin, he's a young Indian, living at the time of Buddha, and he follows his own search for enlightenment and truth. He does not follow, he does not follow Buddha. He finds his own way, and that's what the story is all about. So our group, more than 20 players, dancers, actors, and musicians, we worked for 3 years to create a collaboration, which was improvisation. Most of the performers could sing, play music, and dance. So here is a Balinese, here's a Javanese, there's an Indian, there's a Japanese, and we have a lot of mixtures of people. Here's a Japanese, Here's a very famous Japanese no player. This is an Indonesian Javanese transgender. And this is a Malaysian, very famous Ramli Ibrahim. So we practice 1 week every 3 years to develop this thing. And we use the varied dance, theater, and music styles of these Java, Bali, Java, Malay, India, and China. So our group is very varied. Here's a Balinese. Here's the famous Japanese no. Here is a Japanese, but he learns Balinese. And here's an American, but he is an expert of Japanese. And here is Ramli, who is a Malaysian, but he's an expert of modern dance, ballet, and 2 styles of Indian dance. Down here, we see what we call the Malay makyong, which is a very ritual Malay traditional dance singer. And here is the transgender Javanese and the Balinese. And over here, we use masks. And these are Javanese, and those are Balinese. So we mixed and we used any material that we felt was going to support the meaning and the feeling of the composition. So we created the scenes by working in small groups of 3 or 4 people, and each player had a chance or turn to create that scene and to direct the scene. So that means the whole thing is not made by one choreographer. It is made by everybody doing one part. Okay, so because of that, we have a lot of mixtures or what we call commingling. And so I'm going to show examples here. We're going to see a love scene between Kamala and Siddhartha, which is an Indian and a Javanese dancer, and then crossing the river between Siddhartha and the boatman. That would be Japan and Bali. And finally, a death of Kamala will be the Malay makyong. Okay, so I'll give you a few minutes of this video. Yeah, I'm sorry we have to stop. Okay, so I just want to say, with all the 20 players and musicians, there was no common language. Not everybody could speak English. So during the creation, we had some translations, but mainly the work was to speak with gesture and movement. And since all of these people are really experts, it was very possible for this to happen. And this resulted in wonderful surprises where you'd never expect, one Chinese or one Indian can mix together. Okay, so after the scenes were created, then we made a timeline script, and then the music cues were made from that. And so this is example of the score. So here's the scene, is the opening, and this is the movement. Here is the sound or the music. And these are the three principal musicians, which is a Javanese subtonal, what he will sing or do. That's me, the part I will do. And this is the Indian musician and what she would do. Okay, so that's all put together because we had the timeline, and then we were able to take the separate scenes and make the music work with it. Okay, so I'm going to summarize here because the time is running short. I just want to say that I started talking about diversity, divergence, and direction. I have found a helpful compositional approach how to make new work collaborations by choosing at least two main elements which are functional or very basic. And from these elements, I work with them. So quickly, the first example, Life Elegante, was the Javanese song and the Indian singing style. The second was the Javanese gamelan. So it was the gamelan and the minimalism. So those are the two basic melodies, elements that I work with. And Siddhartha, we had many, many elements, but each scene was based on two elements of whoever made those things, okay? So I just want to say to close, when making intercultural creations, there's always the possibility of conflict between the elements of a work, or even with the collaboration of the artists. So I have to remind myself to always have flexibility. The flexibility with the work and with the people, and very important, have patience with the work and with the people. So I always remember that the important thing is the interplay or the energy, the magnetism between the elements, and therefore the energy between the performers. Okay, so that is what I hope I share with you will be as of use to you as either performers or composers when you do intercultural kind of art. So thank you for your kind attention. And again, I'm very sorry I cannot join you in Bangkok and meet you and talk afterwards. So at this point, I will stop sharing.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Day. That was a wonderful presentation, and it was so enjoyable to get to see some examples of your music and your pieces with interdisciplinary collaborations. I would just like to ask the audience if there are any questions or comments that you would like to add. If not, yeah, I just want to make some closing remarks. I thought it's just so wonderful how you bring several different cultures together through your work, through your music. And just very quickly, may I ask, have you ever encountered like a kind of mindset that maybe some people, they're very precious about preserving their tradition, and maybe they're not so open to combining it with music or, you know, dance from other traditions? Have you ever had to kind of negotiate between cultures when working on pieces like this?
It has happened, but usually what we do, you know, during, just an example with the third piece, we had 3 years, and during the 3 years, we worked with different people. You know, people wanted to join us, or we invited them to join, and some people found out that it did not fit them, and so then they dropped out. So we never really had to negotiate very difficult times. The people who do it want to do it.
Yes, I see. I think it's so wonderful to have this kind of cultural exchange, and it's so exciting that you're working in Indonesia, and there's this kind of melting pot of many, many different artistic possibilities that you can bring together through music. So thank you so much for sharing this with us. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right. Thank you.